You don't attract them. You tolerate them. There's a pattern in your relationships that you've been calling bad luck. Certain people always seem to find you. People who need something. People who take more than they give. People who leave you feeling emptied out after every interaction. You tell yourself you're just empathetic, compassionate, a good friend, someone people can count on. But underneath that explanation, there's a truth you've been avoiding. You're not attracting these people randomly. You're allowing them into your life because something in you believes their needs matter more than yours. And that belief didn't come from nowhere. Jung understood this as unconscious repetition. The psyche recreating familiar dynamics not because they're healthy, but because they're known. When you grow up learning that your value comes from what you provide to others, you develop a magnetism for people who need providing. Not because those people are seeking you out specifically, but because you're the only one who won't turn them away. Everyone else sets boundaries. Everyone else says no when someone asks too much. Everyone else protects their energy. But you don't. You can't. Because somewhere along the way, you learn that saying no means being selfish. That having needs of your own means being difficult. That your worth is measured by how much you can give. So you give and give and give until there's nothing left. And then you wonder why you keep attracting people who drain you. But they're not draining you. You're draining yourself by refusing to protect what's yours. This isn't about empathy. Empathy is feeling with someone, understanding their experience, holding space for their pain without taking it on as your own. What you're doing is different. You're absorbing, you're fixing, you're becoming responsible for other people's emotional states while neglecting your own. This is emotional caretaking. And it's not generosity. It's a survival pattern. When you were young, you learned that other people's emotions were your responsibility. Maybe you had a parent who was volatile, and you learned to manage their moods to keep yourself safe. Maybe you had a parent who was fragile, and you learned to suppress your needs so they wouldn't collapse. Maybe you were praised for being helpful, accommodating, easy, and you internalized the message that your value comes from making other people comfortable. So you developed a finely tuned sensitivity to other people's needs. You learned to read the room, to anticipate what people wanted before they asked, to make yourself smaller so others could be bigger. And that sensitivity became your identity. The caretaker, the helper, the one who's always there. But caretaking isn't the same as caring. Caretaking is a defense mechanism. It's what you do when you're terrified of being abandoned, rejected, or seen as inadequate. You take care of others so they'll need you, so they'll stay, so they won't look too closely at whether you have needs of your own. And people sense this, not consciously, but unconsciously they recognize that you won't push back, that you'll absorb their problems, that you'll give endlessly without expecting anything in return. So they take, not because they're inherently selfish, but because you've signaled that taking is acceptable, that your energy is available, that you don't have limits. And the people who respect boundaries, they move past you. They don't pursue connection with someone who doesn't advocate for themselves. Because healthy people want reciprocity. They want relationships where both people matter. But you're not offering that. You're offering yourself as a resource. And the only people who accept that offer are people who need resources more than they need relationship. Jung talked about shadow magnetism, the unconscious parts of yourself that attract their corresponding parts in others. If you carry unacknowledged neediness in your shadow, you'll attract people whose neediness is overt. If you carry unacknowledged selfishness in your shadow, you'll attract people who have no problem being selfish. If you carry the belief that you don't matter, you'll attract people who treat you like you don't matter. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because your unconscious is trying to show you what you won't acknowledge in yourself. You won't admit that you have needs, so you surround yourself with people whose needs consume all the space. You won't admit that you want to be cared for, so you become the caretaker, ensuring that you're always in the role of giver, never receiver. You won't admit that you're exhausted, so you stay in relationships that exhaust you, proving to yourself over and over that your energy doesn't matter. This is the pattern, and it will repeat until you see it clearly. Let's make this concrete, because this doesn't happen in psychological theory. It happens in your actual life, in relationships you can name, in dynamics you've been excusing for years. You have a friend who only calls when they need something, advice, support, someone to listen to the same problem they've been having for months. You show up every time. You listen. You help. You give them what they need. But when you're struggling, they're busy. They change the subject. They give surface-level responses and move the conversation back to themselves. You notice this. It bothers you. But you don't say anything, because saying something would make you demanding, needy, the kind of person you've spent your life trying not to be. So you stay silent, and you keep showing up, and you tell yourself that's what good friends do. But good friends don't drain you. Good friends reciprocate. Good friends care about your well-being as much as you care about theirs. What you have isn't friendship. It's a dynamic where you've assigned yourself the role of support system, and them the role of person who needs support. And you're both playing those roles perfectly. Or maybe it's a romantic relationship. They're going through something, they're stressed, they're dealing with trauma, they need you, and you're there. You accommodate their moods, you adjust your needs to fit around theirs. You become their emotional regulator. And it feels good at first, needed, important, like you're doing something meaningful. But months pass, and you realize you're always the one adjusting, always the one making space, always the one sacrificing your own emotional reality to hold theirs. You feel exhausted, resentful, but you can't say anything because they're struggling. And what kind of person would you be if you prioritized your needs over someone who's suffering? So you push down the resentment. You keep giving, and you tell yourself that this is what love looks like. But love doesn't erase you. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. Love doesn't leave you feeling like a shell of yourself. What you're experiencing isn't love. It's codependency. And codependency always benefits one person more than the other. Or maybe it's your family. You're the one everyone calls when there's a crisis. The reliable one, the one who never says no. You show up for everyone. You manage everyone's emotions. You hold the family together. And no one asks if you're okay, because they don't need to. You're always okay. You're the strong one, the one who doesn't need support. Except you do need support. You're just terrified to ask for it, because asking means admitting you're not the person they think you are. Asking means risking rejection. Asking means being vulnerable in a way you've never allowed yourself to be. So you keep performing strength, and you keep attracting people who need you to be strong because they're not. This is the pattern. Different relationships, different contexts. Same dynamic. You become the therapist friend, the emotional support, the one who holds everyone's pain. And you tell yourself, this is who you are. This is your purpose. But it's not your purpose. It's your wound. The truth is, most of your relationships are one-sided. And you know it. You've known it for a long time. You just haven't been willing to face what that means. It means the people you've been pouring yourself into aren't actually showing up for you. It means you've been giving to people who don't have the capacity or desire to give back. It means you've been settling for relationships that drain you because you don't believe you deserve relationships that sustain you. And that realization is devastating because it means everything you thought was connection was actually just performance. Everything you thought was love was actually just need. And you have to grieve that. You have to sit with the loss of relationships that were never what you believed they were. But you also have to take responsibility because these people didn't force their way into your life. You let them in. You kept the door open. You ignored every sign that they weren't capable of reciprocity because you needed to be needed more than you needed to be loved. And that's the shift. The moment you stop blaming others for draining you and start asking why you've been allowing it. Drained energy isn't a mystery. It's a message. It's your psyche telling you that something is wrong, that you're giving more than you're receiving, that you're tolerating dynamics that cost you more than they nourish you. And if you keep ignoring that message, the psyche will escalate. It will shut you down. It will make you so exhausted that you can't show up for anyone, including yourself. Because the psyche's priority is your survival. And it knows you won't survive if you keep erasing yourself for people who don't see you. So what do? How do you break this pattern when it's been running your entire life? You start by acknowledging the truth. You've been attracting people who drain you because you've been signaling that your energy is free for the taking. Because you've been prioritizing other people's needs over your own. Because you've been afraid that if you stop giving, people will leave. And they might. The people who are only in your life because of what you provide will absolutely leave when you stop providing. But that's not a loss. That's clarity. The people who stay, who adjust, who start showing up differently when you set boundaries, those are your people. Those are the relationships worth investing in. But first, you have to be willing to lose the ones that aren't. You start setting boundaries. Small ones at first. You say no to requests that drain you. You stop being available to everyone all the time. You stop taking responsibility for other people's emotions. And it feels wrong. Selfish, like you're failing at being the person you've always been. But you're not failing. You're reclaiming yourself. You're teaching people that your energy has value, that you matter, that relationships have to be reciprocal or they're not relationships at all. Some people will respect this. They'll adjust. They'll start showing up differently because they actually care about you, not just what you can do for them. But some people won't. They'll push back. They'll call you selfish. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll make you feel guilty for having needs. And that will show you who they are, not who you hoped they were, who they actually are. People who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries. People who only care about what you provide will resist them. And your job is to let the second group go. Not with anger, not with resentment, just with the quiet recognition that these relationships were never sustainable. That you were never going to get what you needed from people who couldn't see past their own needs. And as you let those relationships go, as you create space in your life, something shifts. You start attracting different people. People who don't need you to be their therapist. People who show up. People who give as much as they take. People who see you, not just what you can do for them. And it feels strange at first, because you're so used to relationships built on need that relationships built on reciprocity feel unfamiliar. Too easy, like something must be wrong. But nothing's wrong. You're just finally experiencing what healthy connection actually feels like. And you realize how much energy you've been wasting, how much of yourself you've been giving away to people who never valued it, how exhausted you've been trying to sustain relationships that were only taking from you. Jung believed that the psyche is always moving toward balance, that when you're living out of balance, giving too much or taking too much, the unconscious will create situations that force you back to center. The people who drain you aren't accidents. They're mirrors, showing you where you've abandoned yourself, where you've made other people's needs more important than your own, where you've been seeking external validation because you haven't developed internal worth. And once you see that clearly, once you take responsibility for your part in these dynamics, you can choose differently. You can stop tolerating people who drain you. You can start choosing people who energize you. You can build relationships based on mutual care instead of one-sided caretaking. But it requires something most people aren't willing to do. It requires disappointing people, walking away from relationships that look good from the outside but feel empty on the inside, letting people be unhappy with you when you prioritize yourself. And it requires facing your deepest fear, that if you stop giving, if you stop being useful, no one will want you. But that fear is based on a lie, the lie that your value comes from what you provide, the lie that love is something you earn through service and self-sacrifice. Real love doesn't require you to erase yourself. Real love sees you, values you, shows up for you. And when you start believing that, when you start requiring that, the people who belong in your life will meet that standard. And the people who don't will leave, and you'll let them, because you'll finally understand something you've been running from your entire life. Your energy reveals who belongs in your life.